is the crew. Slow pan.
Hey, what's going on here? This is the foyer of the courtroom, and I assume you're all here for the trial. Is the defendant James Kent McKinley here?
Mr. President.
Mr. President? Okay, please follow me. And those who would like to come to the trial, come on back.
What is going on?
Couple more chairs. Okay. Court is now in session. We are here today to try the case filed in Maricopa County Superior Court against the defendant, JKM. The state of Arizona's claim is that JKM has been practicing law in the state of Arizona for 37 years under false pretenses. The state claims that the evidence will show that one mortal man could not have accomplished all that he has. The state further claims that JKM is actually Clark Kent, also known as Superman. Witnesses have been called to testify in favor of the claim that JKM has superpowers, that they have given him an unfair advantage in the practice of law. We will first hear from the witnesses of the state. Any witnesses for the state, please arise. No, for the state.
Oh, for the state.
We have a script. Please stick to it. So it appears that the state has defaulted on this claim, so why are you all here?
Your Honor, there are 6 witnesses here to testify that Grandpa, that is James Kent McKinley, is the best attorney in the state of Arizona and with all likelihood in the whole United States. He works harder and longer than any man on the planet, even harder than Superman, and furthermore, his heart is pure gold.
So who are these witnesses, and are they qualified to offer testimony in this court?
Your Honor, if permitted, these witnesses are his 5 children and his wife who have personal and direct knowledge about the defendant and his law practice.
Very well, we will proceed. Remember that this is a court of law. We hope that you all will stay. If children get wiggly or if adults get wiggly, you're invited to adjourn to that room over there where there are coloring books. So the witnesses will proceed in this order. By the way, no drinking or smoking in this courtroom. First witnesses will be Dan, Ginny, Julie, Jay, Shauna, and then Mom. Right.
Okay, so I've been working for about 20 years post college, and I worked with a lot of people, and I've yet to meet anyone that works as hard as Dad did, and I've worked for a lot of big companies, and I've just, like we all know, Dad's just an extremely hard worker, and if it wasn't for Dad's example, I may have foolishly decided to become an attorney myself. But after seeing him work so hard, I realized that I wasn't cut out. I remember many last-minute stops at the office before we went on a big vacation. And my dad always used to say he only needed a minute. He was going to stop in and gather some things, and we'd be on our way. So when I was young, I believed that a minute meant 60 seconds. And as I got older and wiser, I realized that it meant at least a half an hour, and sometimes longer. We all know that Dad was a workaholic. He worked extremely hard to provide for our family, and I'll always be grateful for that example. I've always been impressed by Dad's work habits and how he can be so engaged in his work. And even more importantly, I was impressed with the time that he took to be with us whenever something in our lives was happening. And I don't recall him saying too many times growing up that he couldn't be there for a baseball game or a swim meet because of work. And you would have thought that with his his work habits that he would often miss events, but I can't recall too many times, and so to me that was the magical ability that Dad had to work so hard but always be there for us kids, and just want to say that I love you and thank you for everything. Thank you, David.
Would have been smart to make notes. I should have done that, but I didn't. I want to testify that Dad has the most integrity of any man that I've ever seen. To me, that means that he followed his biggest commitment of being a disciple of Jesus Christ above anything else, and that allowed him to be the best father, the best husband, and the best attorney. And one piece of evidence to point to that is a story that I remember probably when I was about 12 years old. We said family prayers like we always did, and I prayed that morning that we'd have an opportunity to serve somebody that day. And I thought that meant that we'd give somebody a smile that we were passing to in class or whatever. Grandpa thought that meant that he was going to help this, I don't even know who the man was, a homeless man or somebody in a really deplorable situation, and he helped this man for years. And he came home excited to tell me that he had the opportunity to make good on my prayer, and he was excited that he had that opportunity. And I saw him work for this man for a really long time, and he had me come out with him to see his home that he lived in. He lived in a trailer home, and it impressed me so much that I know that Grandpa wanted to follow the Spirit, but he also wanted to show me that prayers are answered and that Heavenly Father thought that my prayer was important. And I knew that Grandpa would have done anything for me as a young girl, and I know that he'd do the same today. And I love him so much, and he's been such an example to me too. And I thought the same thing that Danny did, that he somehow was able to work 100 hours a week and be there for all the important things. And I don't know how he did that either, except for that I would say that it's because that he made that commitment to follow the Savior, and that allowed him to have all of his efforts magnified. And I love you, Dad.
It was interesting, we're asked to prepare something, and I didn't know what anybody else was going to say. So one of the things that I think is really impressive about my dad is that he is the most passionate about his work that anybody I know. I think most of us treat our careers or our work like work. And as soon as we walk out the door, we're really happy to cast it aside. And I think a gift, how many times have you heard Dad say work is a blessing, right? Pretty much our whole lives. And I think one good example of that is when we were kids, we'd be sitting around the dinner table almost every Sunday dinner. Dad would tell us about some case he was working on, and he would usually leave it open-ended and say, what would you guys have done? What do you think should have happened? And, looking back now, why did he care? Why did he care what a 14-year-old thought about a case that he was working on? And maybe he didn't really care what we thought, but I think he was so excited about it. He was so excited about the trial or the inner workings of it, or he was quick to point out when an injustice was done. I remember a case where somebody was up against a 3 strikes situation where they had done some technically felonies, but they were really relatively minor, and he was looking at serious prison time, and Dad would want to talk about how that wasn't fair, and really instilled in us that sense of fairness and our sense of responsibility, and maybe set the bar a little high for all of us, because I don't think any of us have that same passion for the work that we have. But I just think that's so admirable that he loves what he did. And that's why we're having this retirement party when he's 78 years old, because I think he truly loves what he does. And I think that's a great thing to aspire to those young grandchildren that still have their careers in front of you. I hope that you find as much love and passion for the work that you do as Grandpa has in his.
Well, the judge would take off his gown, but it's too hard to put on, so I'm going to testify anyhow. So Dad has really been my best friend in my career. And just loved going to the office, like all of you guys, right? I mean, everyone here loved going to the office. It's just so fun to be with him. All the things that could have gone wrong when you get into business with family, none of them went wrong. There was no jealousy, there was nothing. I mean, it just was great. We would work together all day, we'd go on vacations together, shut down the office, which was even better. Two things about Dad that maybe I haven't mentioned. One is he's so smart. I've been a lawyer for a long time, but I think I've asked him a question about the law, something I didn't know pretty much every day. And he always knows the answer. I really, really admire about that. And the other thing about Dad is he's like the least distracted worker that I've ever seen. He could be in the middle of writing a brief to the United States Supreme Court. You could interrupt him about the smallest thing. He'll give you his full attention. He'll put his pencil down or his dictation unit, and then he'll go right back to it. It's just amazing. And then maybe for you young marrieds, I would say one of my favorite things about Dad too is the courage that he has. The courage to start a law practice with that typewriter, really. And a desk really no bigger than this. And figuring out complicated things, like Grandpa, you don't know this, but I don't think there's anyone else in East Valley who does Chapter 11 bankruptcies, and Grandpa figured it out. And it took a lot of courage, and I'm just really, really proud to have him as a dad.
Well, I think, pretty sure that I have you beat to the amount of time that I worked at the office. And whether you loved it, I'm not sure I agree with that part either. But I worked at the office for a long, long time, so I really got to see a lot of things. And I was trying to think of like one experience or one thing that sort of summed up everything, but it was sort of more of a general thing. Like some of the things that have been said. Dad is so smart, and just he would be somebody who would argue all these interesting and complicated cases, and he took everyone seriously. But most of being a lawyer is like boring stuff. Honestly, it is. It's just kind of boring stuff. But it's about, there are some interesting things of problem solving. I think he loved that part of it. But also, it's a people job. It's a job where you have to, take seriously the problems of a couple of nincompoops who are fighting over the custody of their chihuahua. Those ones. Okay. You have to take that seriously, because people who come into a law office, it's typically not the best day of their life. It's typically something bad has happened to them, or something they're super worried about. And Dad always took all of their concerns seriously. He was compassionate to them. He was a voice of expertise when they needed a voice of expertise. And that's the thing that I think of the most. That I would get frustrated, like, oh, you could just do this so much faster. You could streamline this so much. But he always took the time with every individual and did his best with every single thing. And that's the thing that I think about the most. I don't know if anybody remembers, but there was I don't even remember the situation, but there was some person who was in some kind of legal problem, and it was published in the newspaper. It was in the Tribune. I don't remember even what the problem was. Were you going to say this? Oh, sorry.
No,
okay. I don't even remember what it was. But the next day, or a couple days later, there was an article that this columnist had printed in the newspaper talking about how this guy had had his problem solved by an attorney who wanted to remain anonymous, and that was Grandpa or Dad. And that kind of thing happened all the time. He did so much free stuff, so much stuff that he helped other people without asking for anything, because that was what he had a brilliant legal mind, but also just cared about people and wanted to help them. And I think that's his legacy.
Our children are much, much better than their mother, and they said everything they said so much better than I can. But I'll try really hard to say my feelings about Ken and working in the law office. And you might think that somebody that graduated from Duke Law School intended to spend their lifetime business career practicing law, but Grandpa really didn't. He expected to go into banking, and his first job was in a banking training program at the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, and that's official bank in Toronto. And things went along with our lives, and he was in banking, and he was in a Fort Garry Trust Company as the vice president. And we thought we'd continue down that path until one night when Grandpa was a Sunday school teacher, he was reading in Doctrine and Covenants, and it said that if you have the desire to serve, you are called, meaning called on a mission. And he hadn't had the opportunity to serve a mission as a young man, and certainly as a convert, I hadn't. And we thought, let's see if we can go on a mission. And P.S., that meant we would take our 5 children, who at the time were ages 11 to 1. And our bishop said, you can't go on a mission, but never mind, fill out the paper. And we had a state conference, and the general authority carried the paper back to Salt Lake, and we were called on a mission. And we went to Mississippi. And after 18 months, the mission was over, but we didn't have a place to live. We had decided to move to the best place on earth, Mesa, Arizona, so that all of our children could have wonderful experiences at school and go to seminary and get married in the Mesa Temple. And all of our children got married in the Mesa Temple, and we were so proud and happy about that. But when we moved here, we had bought some lots. Grandpa had spent a few months building the house, and he did his job, got the house built. I didn't get my job back in Mississippi done. We couldn't sell the house. We moved out here 2 days after Julie's 12th birthday? No, 10th birthday. And so we had this house that we had to pay for, and we had the house in Mississippi with no tenants, so we were paying 2 rents. It was really grim. And I wrote on that typewriter over 100 applications for a job for Grandpa. He looked at, we didn't have online, we didn't have anything like that, but he looked at jobs available, and we were even willing, as much as we loved living here, and we felt we were brought here, we'd go to New York, we'd go any place and have a job so that we would have the money to raise our children. And turned out that none of those jobs, we didn't even get replies. It was something else. And one night, Grandpa and I were talking, I said, I know you've got this law diploma. What about if you decide to practice law? And I had no idea what I was asking for someone who had been out of law school 17 years to sit down and take the bar review course, to study, and P.S., by then he had a job, a very tiny little job of selling trade school, just trying to sell high school students the opportunity to go to a trade school that was owned by some member of our board, and every time he made a sale, we got a bonus, and that's what we were living on. And he covered all of southern Arizona. Sometimes he would be in Tucson, and he would be staying there, and I'd say, well, how did it go? And he said, well, maybe he sold something, maybe he didn't. And we had the little red Colt, that was our car, and he was sleeping in the Colt. So we wouldn't spend extra money on the hotel. So things are sort of grim, but somebody in our ward gave him opportunity to help out and work in his office. And Grandpa took the bar exam. You want to guess if he failed or passed?
Passed.
He passed. Flying colors. It was amazing. People that had, just 25 years old, just finished law school, they were failing right and left. He passed, and we started our law business. I was his secretary, and I'd taken high school typing, so that qualified me, because at that point, you did business on a typewriter. What we had was a typewriter. We had our dining room table that we had in Mississippi in our bedroom. We had that long bench, which years ago you fixed up for us, Tina, and so that it wouldn't fall apart. And after the kids were in bed, I would type wills, or I would type letters. And so I was the secretary, as insignificant as I was. And people would say, so, you're working for your husband? And I'm like, haha, that must be grim. And I would say, I love working for my husband. And I even loved him more working for him, because as all of our children have said, his integrity, his power to work, his goodness, just shone through every single day. And I did not like not always being home when my children got home from school. And I know they have some scars from that. That's terrible to come home and have the door locked. But it didn't happen too often in my mind. And we were blessed. We were blessed so, so much. And you little ones there that have been sitting there so quietly, you know, sometimes we have, after Sundays, we have a few minutes with Grandma. We had a lot of hope. Remember when we talked about that word? You have to have hope to do something that you haven't done before. So we had hope. And we also had faith, which also goes with hope. We had, what's that word, Allie? We had courage. Nobody told us that we couldn't do it, and we figured we could. And what's that word, Claire? Love. We had love. We had love in our home. We had love for each other. And we just felt that Heavenly Father would bless us. And He has far and beyond what we ever could have dreamed and asked for. All of you out there are our legacy. It's all that's important. We love each of you so much. And I love Grandpa with all my heart. I'm so happy you're here, and I think he's going to forgive me for when he was going to retire. I said, I'm having a retirement party for you. I said, don't do that. I will hate it. I just stopped talking about it, but we did it anyway.
Okay, before the court renders its opinion, would the defendant like to say anything on behalf?
Well, it's a surprise. I'm very surprised. I really appreciate everyone being here. I certainly appreciate the words of each of my children and my wife. I guess I just want to say that I love you all dearly. The other thing I want to say is I'm so grateful for the blessings that our Heavenly Father has bestowed upon me and upon our family. I know we've been blessed every step of the way. This isn't because of me or because of my talents or anything else. We've just been blessed. I'm grateful for the association I have with each of you. Children, grandchildren, your spouses. I love you all dearly. I'm grateful for this evening, and I say this in the name of Jesus Christ.
Amen. Okay, well, having considered all of the evidence as to whether Grandpa is Clark Kent or a mere mortal, court's conflicted. So the court is going to impose a sentence. The court sentences the defendant to read Travels with Charlie by John Steinbeck. The court further sentences the defendant to all of these maps. And the court, to offset the expenses, will provide the defendant with an all-expense RV rental for a Juicy RV for him to use all of those. And as a final punishment, the defendant shall listen to this song all the time. And let's eat. Okay.
What?